Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. It is us here at JMT, me and Billy Bob Bass, live Sunday evening here on JMT, John Martin Talks Facebook. We're also broadcasting on sites like Citizens for Trump, Deplorable Resistance, Media Measures, and all of our family of shows. And what this is this is not only special because it's the first time we've done this, but it is going to be a weekly occurrence. We've decided that we're going to broadcast our show daily, Monday through Thursday from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we're going to do a show on Sunday evening, and it'll be a combination of a beginning of the week and a wrap up of the week. And we hope you'll enjoy it. I think you will. I'm excited bringing it to you, excited to see how you respond to it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the big breaking news, literally that happened overnight, depending on which end of the date line you are on. But this is coming to you from the Washington Post. Trump, talking about President Trump, becomes the first sitting president to set foot in North Korea. Yes, he set foot in North Korea. Then he met, and there's some debate as to how much this was planned, but we'll get into it in just a moment. But essentially, President Trump was at the G20 summit in Japan over the last part of this week and through the weekend, and he decided that, hey, while I'm here, I might as well meet the latest Kim on his turf a little bit, and let's see if we can't work something out. Of course, he's being roundly criticized by many in the mainstream media and the Democratic 2020 field, which we'll get to in a moment. But I don't know about you, but I love it myself. Panmunjom, South Korea. President Trump met Kim Jong-un, as I say, the latest Kim, at the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea on Sunday and crossed briefly into North Korea, becoming the first sitting president to visit the isolated state. Now, I applaud him for having the courage of his convictions. To me, whether you agree with the president or not, and certainly you can make a case that he may not should have done this. I don't agree with that. I love what he's doing, but I can get behind honest criticism. But here's what I would say to anyone. At least you have a president in Donald Trump that has the courage of his convictions. In other words, he really truly believes that he can work something out with Kim, the president of North Korea, and that it will denuclearize North Korea, which, if true, would be a blessing for the entire world, let alone that area of the world. So I think President Trump is genuine. I take him at his word. And so I applaud him for having the courage, as I say, of his convictions, because many presidents might have wanted to do this, but I don't think anybody but Donald Trump would have done it. The two men held 53 minutes of private talks. I'm sure everybody's going, what'd they talk about? He's selling out. Agreed to set up teams to work out some details to determine whether progress could be made in their negotiations over North Korea's nuclear program, Trump said. 53 minutes to save the world. That's not asking too much, is it? I mean, he could spare a little time there. So, hey, I applaud the Trumpster. Speed is not the object, the president said. We want to see if we can do a really comprehensive, good deal, the art of the deal. Trump said after the talks, nobody knows how things turn out. That's very true. But certainly this was a great day. This was a very legendary, very historic day. He went on to say, it'll even be more historic if something comes up, something very important. Very big stuff, pretty complicated, but not as complicated as people think. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about North Korea. And a lot of people don't seem to understand this. North Korea, and I'm not getting into all the details of, the dictatorship and everything, because we've been dealing with dictators, whether you like it or not, presidents have, since the beginning of this nation. And it's just a fact of life. Do I wish that we could all call them out on this and live happily ever after in a world where we had peace and no one was oppressed, no one was persecuted, any of that stuff? Yes, but that's not the world we live in. The thing about conservatives, live in the real world. We can't live in the fantasy world of the progressive left. But President Trump is trying to get something done here. And about North Korea, here's what I wanted to get back. Billy Bob says, get back to my point. Billy Bob Bass, if you haven't met him, first time looking at the show, he's my psychic sidekick. He keeps me straight. He says, get her done, so to speak. He has a Twitter following, by the way, and his handle is at Billy Bob Bass 1. And of course, mine is at John Martin Talks. But North Korea simply wants to be recognized. That is at the heart of everything they're doing, is to be recognized. I honestly believe that is at the heart of their nuclear program as well. You know, do you really believe that North Korea is wanting to take on the world with nuclear weapons? I mean, Kim Jong-un, he may be a little bit crazy, but I don't think he's a fool. I think he realizes that he would be taken out instantly. China would take him out, let alone his own generals, if he actually got ready to push the button. So I'm not as concerned about that as some might be, because I think he's being controlled and manipulated a bit by China, which is another reason for Trump to do what he's doing, is putting pressure indirectly and directly on China. But North Korea wants to be legitimized and recognized. Now, a lot of people are opposed and say that the president is giving him legitimacy and recognition. And that's true. There's no question about that. He's elevated Kim's status in the world. But to me, I'd rather have an elevated ego, stroke the ego of Kim than have him all upset and trying to prove something, because that's when he's really dangerous. But history was made at 3:45 p.m. local time in Panmunjom Sunday as Trump and Kim walked up to the line dividing the two Koreas and shook hands. They literally, as you see right here, shaking hands across the line that separates North and South Korea in the demilitarized zone. Kim then invited Trump to cross into North Korea. The two men strolled a few yards to a road on North Korean side, stayed a few seconds, then crossed back into South Korea. So I guess now that means that President Trump is in the pocket of the latest Kim. It's not enough that he's working for Putin, but now he's in the control, some kind of psychic mind control of Kim Jong-un. Ridiculous bullshit. That's what that is. But hey, keep it up, man. He's just trying to keep up with the Democrats. I mean, Beto, is it Beto or it's Pac? I call him Paco, but Billy Bob tells Beto O'Rourke is literally campaigning for president in Mexico just about as we speak, yet they're saying that Donald Trump is somehow, in the pocket of these world leaders, when the Democrats are literally campaigning in another country. What kind of votes are they hoping to get there? I mean, I'm not making this up. You can Google it, but remember, Google is of the devil. But Kim said that it's good to see you, talking to the president. I never expected to see you in this place. We want to bring an end to our unpleasant past, Kim said, and bring a new future, so that this is a very courageous and determined act, talking about the president. This handshake of peace itself serves to demonstrate that today is different from yesterday. Amen. I hope he's right about that. But isn't that what we want? Don't we want something to be a bit different than it was before? Isn't that one of the reasons why people like you and me voted for Donald Trump? Did we vote for Donald Trump for status quo? Heck no, we didn't. But that's what the establishment fears. The establishment actually fears, more than the nuclear weapons, they actually fear that things may be different under Donald Trump, and they might not need that philosophy of endless war that the Democrats and the progressive left have now come to embrace. But Trump said it was my honor to cross into North Korea, and I'm sure it was. Now, as I said before, this is not to set aside any atrocities that have been committed there, but we have to deal with who we're dealing with. We can't deal with the people we wish we could. We have to deal with reality. Trump lives in the real world with the rest of most of America. It's the progressive left that live in this fantasy. But Trump went on to say, a lot of really great things are happening, tremendous things. We met and we liked each other from day one, talking about their previous encounters, and that was very important. Let me just tell you, and there's an old saying, and I've looked it up, and there's multiple different accounts as to who said it, so I'm just going to say it here. I'm not taking credit for it. But basically, you don't make peace with your enemies. You cannot make peace with I'm your friend. I'm saying, let me back that up. You don't make peace with your friends. I knew I'd botch that up. You have to make peace with your enemies. Your friends are your friends, right? You already have peace with them. You can only make peace with enemies. It just goes without saying, even though I kind of botched it up. Well, I do that from time to time. Some people say that gives me charm, and others say I'm just a fat redneck. But hey, I report, you decide. The two men then met with South Korean, I think this is big, they've met before with him, South Korean President Moon Jae-in before adjourning for bilateral talks in the Inner Korean House of Freedom, interesting name, on the southern side of the border. See, President Trump is trying, man. I mean, people, if you'll be honest with yourself, if you'll stop just being either a snowflake or a hardcore leftist, President Trump is trying. Can you imagine? And we're going to talk more specific about the debates that happened Wednesday and Thursday night. I gave a detailed description of my thoughts on the Wednesday night debate on my Thursday show. Go back and check out my podcast. The best way to see our shows from the past is to go directly to John Martin Talks. They're all there. Like my page, share it with others. I greatly appreciate it. But on Thursday's show, we talked about Wednesday night in detail. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but we're going to focus primarily on the Thursday night debate that featured Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, among others. But can you imagine any of the Democrat 2020 field, the 20 you saw up there, even though there's like 24 or 5 now running, having the stones to do this if they were president? Can you envision that? I don't. See, what would happen is you could have somebody like, say, a Joe Biden, God help us, or any of them. It doesn't really matter. If they actually won, they may want to do this. They may have the idea to do this. They may even have the spontaneity to talk about it on Air Force One on the way back from Japan. But Joe Biden, first of all, or any of the rest of them, they don't have the stones to do it. They would listen to their establishment figures around them, and they would just kowtow to that. They would defer to them. President Trump listens, but then makes his own decision because he is, love him, hate him, or whatever. He's his own man. Sitting down before the talks began, Kim again underlined the importance of the meeting. He said, "I hope it can be a foundation for better things that people will not be expecting. Our great relationship," describing his relationship, I think, more personally between he and the Trumpster rather than our nations per se. "Our great relationships will provide the magical power with which to overcome hardships and obstacles in the tasks that need to be done from now on." Now, some people, back to this thing about meeting with this dictator. Keep in mind, and I'm thinking about all the times that we've met, and one of the most famous one is the Yalta Conference that ended in February 11th, 1945, just as World War II, at least especially on the German side, it was pretty evident that Germany was going to fall. And of course, at the time they had the conference, the public didn't know about the nuclear bombs in Japan, but of course the Churchill and obviously FDR probably knew. But Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill met at Yalta. I think we have a picture of that up there, but in a minute. There you go, right there. Do you really believe that these guys trusted each other? Even Churchill and FDR didn't see eye to eye on everything. Churchill begged FDR to get into the war, and he was very reluctant to do so. And Stalin, old creepy, the original creepy Uncle Joe right there, maybe related to Joe Biden, certainly to Bernie Sanders. I mean, he wasn't to be trusted for anything. I mean, everybody focuses on Hitler, rightfully so, and how many people he killed. But Stalin killed 20 million people in Russia. And I'm not talking about in the battlefield. I'm talking about what they call his pogroms, where he was snuffing people out in the gulags. So here you have a ruthless dictator, one of the most ruthless in the history of the planet, and two people representing at the time the strongest democracies, in our case, a republic in the world, sitting down, meeting with Joseph Stalin to literally divide up the world. Keep in mind, they were talking about the war, but the war was already lost to the Axis powers. It was just a matter of time. Now, I don't mean to sidetrack the many people that lost their lives between this picture and the time the war actually ended, but everybody knew which way it was going. So they were literally meeting to divide up the world as we know it. And we're still dealing with that, by the way, those types of things. But my point being, you have to make peace with enemies. You don't make peace with your friends, man. Earlier, Trump also spoke warmly of Kim. He said, We've developed a very good relationship. He said that over and over. And we understand each other very well. I do believe he understands me, and I think I maybe understand him, and sometimes that can lead to very good things. Here's the bottom line on this, kind of what President Trump said in that church in Detroit about trying to get African American black people to vote for him. What do you got to lose? Well, what do we got to lose on this? I mean, really and truly, what do we have to lose? We can always go back to when North Korea was test firing missiles over Guam and Japan. I mean, so how could it hurt? How could this possibly hurt? And Kim Jong-un is going to do what he's going to do to his people already. That is not for us to decide, by the way. But Moon from South Korea also spoke of the meeting as a historic moment. He said, and I really love, I mean, check what he said out. Even the most harshest critics of President Trump, if you have an honest bone in your body, have to appreciate what the president of South Korea is saying here. He said, through today's meeting, the peace process for complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and keep in mind, no one has more to lose than this guy, Peninsula, and establishment of a permanent peace has overcome a big hurdle. He said it gave a big hope to the world and the 80 million people of South and North Korea. So he's saying it actually gives hope. Hope to the world is what he's saying now. We can't have that, can we? We can't have Trump actually bringing hope to the world. That's why I say forget Trump 2024 and a third term as president. Why don't we just, after Trump completes his second term, why don't we just elect him to the UN Security Council, to the head guy, the Secretary General of the UN? Because we're not going to get rid of the UN anytime soon. So why don't we just MAGA the son of a gun? That's the way I look at it. Make Trump the head of the New World Order. Boy, I tell you what, I'm halfway kidding, but I'm halfway true, Snowflakes. So decide whether you're going to melt or stay whole. I don't know. It's up to you. Trump broadcast his offer to meet Kim at the border in a tweet on Saturday. People watch his tweets. Kim watching his tweets Saturday from the Group of 20 Summit, the G Summit in Osaka, Japan. A senior North Korean official responded that the offer was interesting. Now, of course, the media and the critics will say, it's reckless. It's reckless. We need the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment. Impeach 45, impeach 45. And I say Trump for a third term. I'm only kidding. Just, don't freak out. Maybe not. President Trump said, yesterday I was thinking, I'm here. Let's see whether we can say hello to Kim Jong-un. And that sounds like Trump. He's probably calls up the guys and say, hey, put a call into Kim, man. See if we can get this done. And wanted to do it from the beginning. So he said, I did it. I wanted to do it. So I did it. That's the Trump we love. Of course, the establishment figures, the never Trumper Republicans, they're cringing because something might actually change. The establishment hates this. I love it. Let me just ask you, my listeners, what do you think? Chime in on my Facebook page. You're listening like Citizens for Trump, Deplorable Resistance, directly to John Martin Talks Facebook. Like it, share it with us. Let me know what you think, because the establishment, the media, the hardcore left, the never Trumpers, they hate this, man. As I say, I love it. I'd like to hear what you have to think about it. All right, we're going to move on and get a little bit of a reaction from the Democrat 2020 field, man. So possible peace, I think we should celebrate. But of course, the 2020 people, they don't have much to celebrate right now. This is coming to you from Reuters. U.S. Democratic candidates dump on Trump over North Korea meeting. U.S. candidates running for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination on Sunday criticized President Donald Trump's latest overture to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, saying the leaders' meeting lacked substance and elevated a ruthless dictator. It lacks substance and elevated a ruthless dictator. Did you check out what Comrade Bill de Blasio, the current mayor of New York and a candidate who many said kind of won, including myself, the first debate on Wednesday night? Did you see what he said on Friday while he was still down in Miami? He was in front of a group of cheering people, loving Comrade Communist de Blasio. Because make no mistake, that dude is a communist. And he quotes, of all people, he says, please, I'm going to say it in Spanish. I don't pretend to speak Spanish, but he said, hasta la victoria siempre. And that means it's a protest call, which translates until victory always. Now, you may say, what's wrong with that? Well, that was a famous saying, apparently, of Che Guevara, the guy who killed people for Fidel Castro, who ended up going down to South America and ran basically a hit squad down there of people. That's the guy, Bill de Blasio, and make no mistake about it. It was no mistake. He knows exactly who he is quoting. So these people are talking about President Trump haters when the truth is the Democratic Party has no problem cozying up to dictators. In fact, the one thing they were all quick to say in this, and it just got repetitive, so I'm not going to say it. You could put it in the mouths of pretty much all of them. They were quick in this article to say, we don't really have a problem with President Trump meeting with a foreign leader, a dictator. Well, you know why? Because it would just fly in the face. They even have, I don't know about principles, but a little bit of political knowledge, and they know that it would fly in the face if they were pushing socialism and communism, like de Blasio and Bernie, outright communists, and so is Ocasio-Cortez, by the way. She may not know it, but she is one. Pushing that, and at the same time criticizing President Trump for meeting with one, they probably think that might be a bridge too far. But so they're quoting Che Guevara and criticizing Trump for meeting with Kim. Wow. The audacity of the hopeless. The meeting at Trump's last-minute invitation drew praise from some, including Pope Francis, by the time he got on the right side, as a step toward peace. Critics called it a publicity stunt, and it could have been, but it might work. How about that? And said Trump wasted an important symbolic move when there has been little sign that North Korea has taken meaningful steps toward denuclearization. A symbolic move. Now, keep in mind, this is from the same crowd that in Thursday night's debate, when they were asked, how many of you by a show of hands would give free medical care, guarantee free medical care to illegal aliens? They didn't say that. They talked about the migrants. But I'm saying it. Look at the picture. First of all, they're all raising their hand, but you got to like Joe, and that picture doesn't even really do it justice because he was going like, wait a minute, did I hear you? And they're all for it because, Biden, man, he's in a terrible position because on the one hand, he's cowardly and he's going to, whatever they're for, I got to be for. Whatever they're for, I got to be for. And on the other hand, he actually may have a little lick of sense, not much, but a little, and realize that this is just insane. So he might be hesitant. So in a way, I feel sorry for him. Although, Mr. Biden, this is the party that you, sir, helped and was a major part in creating the modern Democratic Party, which probably don't have time for you. And there's like, but anyway, so they all raised their hand in symbolism for destroying America. Because make no mistake about it, if we have free medical care guaranteed for all illegal aliens, I'm calling it what it is, coming across our border, giving away the country, it's the end of it. Think about this. President Trump is in Korea being beat up, trying to save the world from potential nuclear holocaust. And the Democrats are in unison trying to give away the country because make no mistake, if that actually happened, our country as we know it would go by the wayside. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe that is what they want. I've been perplexed about some of this, wondering, do they truly believe this nonsense? Does Joe Biden and guys like that truly believe this? I'm beginning to think they must because they sure are eating it, man. They're, as an old salty dog, old fisherman myself would say, they're taking it hook, line, and sinker. I hope you don't. A number of Democrats vying to replace Trump in the White House in the 2020 election said there was nothing wrong with talking to U.S. adversaries, I kind of talked about. So they'll stand up for socialism. We'll agree with President Trump if he's talking to a socialist, communist dictator. We're okay with that. Now, the rest of it, I don't know. This round of talks, however, they said, should have followed intense preparations and substantive progress by North Korea on the nuclear issue. Well, I don't disagree with that. Maybe it should have, but it could. I'm just going to throw out something out there, and maybe I'm, as Fonzie would say, wrong. I don't think so, but just maybe it's a possibility. Let me take a sip of this before I, admit that I might be wrong. But could it possibly be that Trump is a little bit distracted from doing the job he really could do by the constant impeach 45, 25th Amendment, impeach 45, and all the nonsense? What if President Trump, for just one day, was allowed to actually be the president of the entire United States? Keep in mind, when he had his famous meeting in Hanoi in Vietnam, that the very day President Trump was meeting with Kim, what do the Democrats do back here? They have their show-off hearing, their freak show with Michael Cohen. They could have picked any day to do that. They're in complete control of the calendar, and they picked that day to undermine the president. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's radical, but if they actually allowed President Trump to be president for a day, I mean, in spite of the fact that he is and doing a great job, maybe he could get a little more focused on that. Just a thought. Radical, could be wrong. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, Liawapa, as I call her, the whitest woman in America by her own admission, she said, our president shouldn't be squandering American influence on photo ops and exchanging love letters with a ruthless dictator. Now, this is coming from a woman that went on Twitter on video and couldn't work a beer. She didn't even know how to drink a dadgum beer. I mean, it's been a day or two since I had one, but I think I could probably remember it or figure it out fairly quickly. She couldn't even do that, but she's going to tell Trump how to do something. Now, of course, Bernie Sanders said, what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day? Now, when I first saw it, I'm wondering, is that how he responded to Trump? Or was that just how he woke up in Miami the next day after the debate? Where am I? Whoa, what's going to happen? I mean, because let me tell you, one thing out of that debate on Thursday night, Bernie and especially Biden looked like tired old white dudes. And this is coming from a tired old white dude. So I should know, right? But Julian Castro, of course, he was promoted so much on that, the whole speaking Spanish thing. I mean, I said this, but I'm going to bear it repeating, because if I say it, it does bear repeating, that Wednesday night's debate when Castro was like propped up as this great, leader for Hispanics. I mean, I just got to ask you, and I know I got a growing Hispanic audience, and I greatly appreciate it. Didn't you think it was a bit much that they were actually pandering to this guy? If I was a Spanish-speaking person, especially if I was of Hispanic descent, I gotta believe I'd be a little bit insulted by that. But hey, that's just me. But Julian Castro said Trump has raised the profile of a dictator by meeting with Kim 3 times now with nothing to show for it. Now, this is coming from the dude. He's saying nothing to show for it when he's the guy that literally on the debate stage, and I predicted this was going to happen months ago, that Castro actually was advocating for abortion genders. In other words, men who are trying to become women or women who are trying to become men, who neither side wants to get pregnant, right? But one doesn't want to and the other one can't. But Julian Castro is advocating for their right to abortion. And this guy's going to run for president and try to talk about how President Trump would do it. Give me a break. And of course, not to be outdone, old Paco. I mean, I get that. If you just go by your name, your mother gave you, Robert Francis O'Rourke, man, it wouldn't be so confusing. But Beto said North Korea has not lived up to the commitments made in previous summits with Trump, and intense preparation should have been made before the leaders met again to ensure progress. So what you're telling me, Beto, is that you're all for making nations live up to their commitments. So can I put you on the side of supporting President Trump, making our NATO alliance and our partners in NATO live up to their commitments of the treaty they actually signed? Can I put you in that camp? I doubt it. But, he said, he's talking about Trump. He said, he's doing it backwards. Doing it backwards? You're the dude that I just told you earlier is campaigning on the wrong side of the border. Beto O'Rourke is actually campaigning in Mexico. I kid you not. The man is campaigning in Mexico. No reports if he's riding a burro or a jackass. And if you've watched my show, which you should, by the way, you'll know what I'm talking about. A spokesman for former Vice President Joe Biden said Trump was coddling dictators at the expense of U.S. national security. coddling. Now, Joe knows a thing or two about cuddling or coddling, does he not? He's a cuddler in a case of Joe Biden campaign, man. But let me just say, and there's various, I want to get into all the responses of them, but you can imagine they're pretty predictable and all the same. But the bottom line is there's not a single person on that stage Wednesday or Thursday night that could hold Donald Trump's jockstrap. Period. Plain and simple. But Billy Bob, there might be a few that want to, but ain't none that could, man. All right, we're going to move on. This next story comes to you from Politico, and it's an opinion piece. Let me check my time. I'm doing good. It's an opinion piece by a guy named Tim Alberta. I don't know anything about him other than he is chief political correspondent at Politico magazine. So he's a Politico wacko, I guess. But he seems to make some sense in this. But the Dems apparently seem to be nervous about the 2020 field. The title of this, unhappy with their 2016 coronation, the Democrats start a 2020 circus. After the maelstrom in Miami, the presidential candidates and their campaign staffs are talking openly about a long, divisive primary. The circus, baby, is back in town, man. It's back in town. Marianne Williamson narrowed her eyes. That's the one, if you're wondering who Marianne Williamson is, she was that real wacko chick up there on Thursday night's debate. If you looked and said, who that? It was her. And I don't know if she's a voodoo, but she's certainly a hoodoo. And she's a witch, basically. And she put a hex on the president in her closing remarks. Marianne Williamson narrowed her eyes and gazed into my soul, this writer says, channeling some of the same telekinetic life forces she used minutes earlier to cast a spell on Donald Trump. So the Democrats actually have somebody on their debate stage casting spells. I mean, you can't, this stuff just writes itself. Can you really make this up? In her closing statement she did on Thursday, Democratic presidential debate inside a sweaty spin room is what he said he asked her about. Now here, let me just tell you right now, I'm not... The party, I don't know what to do with witches, but let me just, in case they're kind of trying to put a hex on my evil, be gone. I'm just trying to get rid of it, man. I'm not that up on witchery. I just don't think I want to be, but evil, get thee behind me. In 2016, let me look, guitar behind me maybe. If it starts playing itself, we'll know we're in trouble. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was served the Democratic presidential nomination on a silver platter. And I would agree with you, sir. Yes, she was. He makes this point. He makes some really good points in here. It's hard for me to disagree with much of them, but there's a couple. This coronation, talking about Hillary Clinton, yielded one of the weakest general election nominees in modern history. Nothing I could argue with there. Someone disliked and distrusted by more than half the electorate. That sounds like Hillary. The greatest candidate in the history of the world, according to the Obamas. According to this guy, she's one of the most disliked, hated people in the country. And that's who they put up there. Said, guided by a sense of entitlement. Can't find any fault in that. Rather than a sense of urgency. Yeah, she was just kind of flailing around. Hey, I'm leading my jet plane. Someone incapable. He's talking about Hillary Clinton now. And this is a guy from Politico. It's hard to believe, but maybe he's getting woke, really woke. Someone incapable of mobilizing the party's base to defeat the most polarizing and unpopular Republican nominee in our lifetimes. He's talking about the Trump. Now he's going off the rail. Now, I agree with most of that. But with this last part, they still don't get it. President Trump is not unpopular with the people who support him. In fact, his popularity is at an all-time high. And I tell you right now, I'm hesitant to really talk this because I really believe, the reason you'll understand in a minute, the reason I'm hesitant to talk about how in the bag President Trump may have this, because I know we need to work our butts off, not only to ensure the president wins, but that we can retake the House from these crazy Democrats and possibly strengthen the Senate so that President Trump in his second term can actually have a mandate and the power to get it done. But I don't want us to, but to me, President Trump, man, if things keep going like they are, I think he's actually going to take a few more states. He's going to win the same states he won before and maybe a couple more. Too far on that because I want us to build that wall brick by brick right here, a political wall and everything. Build the wall, man, better for all. But Democrats don't have, back to the article, Democrats don't have to worry about another coronation. Instead, with 24 candidates battling for the right to challenge Trump next November, they are dealing with the opposite problem, a circus. This guy must be watching JMT, because I've been calling it a circus for a while. Jackasses on jackasses, because they better not ride, because I was hoping the first question it didn't, but maybe the next debate they will when they whinny it down, whinny and whining and whinnying and all that. The first question should have been, how many of you signed up for the Green New Deal? And of course, Biden, he plagiarized. He'd be going like, and then they'd all hold their hands up, right? And my second question, follow-up, would have been, well, then how'd you get here? Because like in Miami, it's pretty hard to ride a jackasses on jackass, all the way down to Miami. Because you can't take a plane, a boat, a car, a train, none of that, right? And walking, hard to do all 57 of the states Obama campaigned in, walking. But 3 days after the maelstrom in Miami, top Democratic officials insist there's no sense of panic. Maybe there should be. They say everything is under control. If true, to use their phrase, if true, if everything is under control, it's only because no matter who comes out of that 20 bunch, and considering who might still jump in, one thing is for sure. Whoever gets the Democratic Party nomination in 2020 will be the hardcore progressive leftist communist we have ever seen run by a major party. Period. That is guaranteed. So maybe that part is in total control, because what other choice do you have? Because the ones that are even moderate, if there is such a word, are just, there's a couple of them wasn't even let up there, and they let the witch up there. Think about that. If you're a serious candidate running for president and you couldn't qualify because of the metrics they were trying to get you, but a witch could, that says a lot about you, and it says a hell of a lot about the Democratic Party. The unifying objective of defeating Trump in 2020 likely won't be sufficient to ward off what everyone now believes will be a long, divisive primary. See, what's happened is they have exposed themselves for who they truly are. All you got to do is listen to these people. You just have to listen to them. If you listen to them and watch them, I mean, think about it. They literally asked the question, how many of you on Thursday night's debate would be for universal free health care for migrants? They're talking about illegal aliens, and everyone went bada bing, and Biden went, I mean, all you got to do is listen to them. They'll tell you what they plan to do, which if that actually comes to pass is the end of them. Because let me just ask you, if you're in Guatemala, not knocking people from Guatemala, and I don't blame you. If I was in some of these hellholes, I'd be wanting to get out too. But can you imagine? It's treacherous enough to get here, and there's a lot of decisions. But if they told you, hey, you can get free housing, free college, and free health care, just come, how many would take and do whatever they possibly could to get there? Anywhere in the world. The whole world will be trying to come here overnight if that actually happens. Michael Bennet, he's supposed to be a moderate, the Colorado senator and presidential candidate, told about the writer of this article, after participating in Thursday night's forum, he said, Mr. Bennett said, I don't think there's a sense among the American people of what the National Democratic Party stands for. I wish you were right, sir, that we didn't, but we do. I mean, that raising of the hand and the automatic, and even you raised your hand, sir, I believe. I mean, I think we know where you're coming from. Just listen to them. They will tell you. He might ought to listen, because maybe he doesn't know where they are, but me and Billy Bob know exactly where they stand. And he goes on to say, I think there's an actual more confusion about that now. No, there's not. If you watch those debates, the choice could not be clearer. We have a choice, love him, hate him, indifferent, whatever, between President Donald Trump, who has the cojones to try to make promises made, promises kept, who at least shows that he believes in the U.S. Constitution. I know a lot of you snowflakes don't believe that he's honest, he's hardworking, and he wants to put America first under the guidance of the U.S. Constitution that looks out for the rugged individualism, the rights of the individual, and not mass hysteria, which is what basically the Democratic Party has come from. That's your choice. You are the party of law and order, the Constitution, and America first are chaos, witchery, skullduggery, and yes, mask violence in our streets, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. But so I don't think the choice could be any clearer. Let me look. We still got about 20 minutes, so we got time. The perception in the eyes of the political class and the feeling on the ground was something closer to chaos. That's what the writers read. Chaos is what he called it. I'd call it more like a 3 or maybe a 2-ring circus, you know. I still miss, that's another thing, a pet peeve of mine. One of the things, I'm a little bit bitter about the Democrats because, you know, my aunt, all my people except for my mom, she's 98. The rest of them are dead and gone now. They're kind of the greatest generation. She took me every year to Jacksonville, Florida, to the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Every year. And man, did I look forward to going there. And I broke my heart one day not too long ago because the main rail line in the state of Florida goes right through Hawthorne. I saw the last train coming through Hawthorne, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus train heading home for the last time. I should have taken a video of it, but it does break my heart. So I have a pet peeve because the progressives, yes, the progressives killed the circus. They did. They killed the circus, man. So I guess in payback to us, they're giving us another circus, a political circus. Last night, or a couple nights ago, it was a 2-ring circus. But it's funny and fun and scary. But it ain't like, I mean, I'd rather see how many clowns can pack into a car than how many can pack on stage in Miami. But that's just me. Debates are imperative, according to this writer. The debates are imperative to exposing the fault lines within the Democratic coalition. Now, he says fault lines. See, that's where I would take a little sidetrack with him. It exposed the faults of the Democratic Party, and it exposed the faults of the individual candidates. As I say, Biden looked like he was 100 years old up there. So it definitely exposed the faults of the party and its participants. But as far as the fault lines, I don't agree with that. Because in my opinion, there's not a hill of beans difference, really, between all 20 of those people that were up there Wednesday and Thursday night. As I said, at the end of the day, no matter who wins, and there's poll numbers showing that Biden has slipped a little. He's still up, but he slipped. Kamala Harris has moved into 3rd place. You know, Kamala wears my Willie Harris and smoking ganja, and her dad's ashamed of her. That gal, the one, and we'll talk about her more specifically in a minute. But yeah, she's creeped up into 3rd place. But make no mistake, whoever comes out of this crazy bunch is going to be the hardest core leftist that we have ever seen. The only way they could get further out there is if they actually elect that witch. And she may put a hex on all of them. I don't know why she's hexing Trump. She needs to be hexing the rest of them. But he says here, he said, debates are imperative to refining and forging the left's governing philosophy. The left's governing philosophy is just go left. Through the fires of competition. Competition is good for them, and it is. I say it all the time. Competition is good. We need competition. The progressives don't really believe in competition, do they? A measured clash of ideas and worldviews is healthy for a party seeking a return to power. And that's all it's about, right? And it may be good to seek the return to power, but how good is it going to be for America? Not so much, I don't think. Unless you are about fundamentally changing America, then maybe you're right. What's not healthy, he says here, for a party is when the front runner, a white man, talking about Biden, is waylaid by the ferociously talented and up-and-comer. She's talented, all right. A black woman who prefaces the attack. She says, I don't believe you're a racist, to him, before calling him a racist. Right? She said, bless her heart, man. You know, bless old Kamala Harris. Talking about her. I didn't see that go back. It was kind of interesting. But she's clearly been oppressed. I mean, Kamala Harris has clearly been oppressed. But, you know, think about it, Kamala. It's not something a little couch time wouldn't help you. I mean, if you're feeling a little down and out, you know, get old Willie, get on the couch, and surely you'll find something that'll spring up. But Biden, man, you know, one thing she did is expose Biden because he looked old, he looked fumbling and stumbling and didn't really know what to do. But this writer goes on to say what's not healthy for a party is when a smug, self-impressed, now you can imagine who they're talking about here, impressed congressman with no business being on stage flails widely with juvenile sound bites. Could they be talking about Swalwell? I think they're talking about Swalwell. What's not healthy for a party is when a successful red state governor and decorated war hero turned congressman are forced to watch from home, couldn't even make the debate states, at home as a oracler, I guess that's what they say, oracle, someone who speaks so well, I suppose, mystic, talking about that witch, with no experience in policy making. How do you know? She may be like the head of the council. Lectures her opponents on the folly of having actual plans to govern the country. So, moderates, you're not in room. But of course, Bill de Blasio said late last year on Bill Maher's show that moderates or centrists need not apply. Talking about the 2020. Well, there ain't many of them up there for sure. So moderates know, witches all the way, man. So if that's one. I wonder if the Green New. I just thought of something, Billy Bob. I don't know the answer to this. Does the Green New Deal cover brooms? I mean, I guess if it's made out of, as long as that broom is not made out of some new carbon fiber, you're probably all right. If it's just an old straw on a stick, as long as it was whittled and not honed on a machine, you'll probably be all right. So moderates know, witches all the way, brother. What about a warlock? Who out there would make a good warlock? Swalwell looks like he might be a good candidate. But this next paragraph, I got to reiterate who's writing this, okay, in case you're just tuning in. This story is written by Tim Albert. I want to get his name correct. Chief political correspondent at Politico magazine. Listen to what now this guy, if he's chief political correspondent at Politico, I'm going to go way out on a limb here and say this dude is a progressive. You know, he just is. There's no doubt about it. Now listen to what he says here. This coming from a progressive liberal talking about the current state of the Democratic Party in the 2020 field. He said the significance in these events was not merely what was said in the moment, but what is now assured in the future. He goes on to say, getting more specific, upcoming debates, will almost certainly feature discussions of Gabbard's shadowy connections to Syria, Tulsi Gabbard, and more broadly, the party's ambiguous post-Obama foreign policy. They don't have one. Their only foreign policy, I hate to tell you, and probably he sees this, is criticizing Obama. I'm sorry, that's what they should be, criticizing Trump, 25th Amendment, all that kind of, impeach 45. That's their entire foreign policy, really. So it's their only policy. There will be greater pressure, he goes on to say, to conform to Castro's, talking about the man that was advocating for abortion rights for transgenders, argument to decriminalize the border crossing, a position that animates the progressive base but may very well alienate moderates and independents. If you don't know what he's talking about, Castro proposed this, and basically all of them agreed with it, that crossing our border illegally, in other words, bum rushing, busting into our house without permission, should not be a crime. It should just be like a misdemeanor. We just write you a ticket, I guess, at the border and you go on your way. Oh, here's your free health care. Here's your free education, college education. Oh, here's some housing, some transportation. Oh, we're going to give you a little citation that you don't need to pay and don't need to show up for, but just to make us feel like we're doing something. Just a wee bit tougher on you, we're going to do that. But that's what the Democratic Party in this debate, if you didn't see it or you weren't listening close enough, let me explain it to you. The Democratic Party on Wednesday and confirmed on Thursday night are for total open borders and a welfare state. Total open borders and a welfare state. The end result will be the end of the United States of America under the U.S. Constitution. Will we be? Possibly, but doubtful. But one thing's for sure. I don't know what we won't, what we'll become, but I know what we won't be, and that's a republic under the U.S. Constitution. But he goes on, this writer. Now keep in mind, this is a liberal guy. I can't emphasize it enough. The whispers of butt-edges struggle with black voters will surely intensify, and his opponents are already scheming of ways to use one of the debate responses. He said, I couldn't get it done. So he's going to solve the world's problems, let alone America's problems, but he couldn't govern South Bend, Indiana by his own admission. And he goes, and this, I tell you, I think he's right. I think this writer is right. And let me tell you, I hate to say this to you, but maybe I do. I don't like to be, maybe that witch has hexed me, because I don't like to be wicked. I don't know if this is wicked or not, but it's going to be a crazy, topsy-turvy debates and everything else. And I'm looking forward to every minute of it. I'm going to bring you every minute. You don't have to watch them. You might want to, but if you don't want to watch them, one of the things I do here at JMT, because I'm always trying to help, me and Billy Bob, we're always trying to help. That's why we're on here Sunday night. No, you're not watching something from yesterday. This is live on Sunday night. We're going to be on here Monday through Thursday at 8 a.m. and Sunday evenings. That's what we plan from here on. I hope you'll respond to it. Tell me how you like it, by the way. Tell me if you like this format and everything else. But I'm looking forward to every minute of it. And as I say, as a public service to you, I watch these debates. I watch programs, read articles like Politico in here, so you don't have to. I do it. I'm doing it for the children. But this last article, and we got a few minutes left. I want to bring this to you because, man, it is absolutely crazy. This is what the Dems should be focusing on. Have we got those videos ready? We're going to play a couple of videos here before I even do the story. We may play them again because the story's kind of short. But I want to play this video if you haven't seen it, and then we'll talk about it. A couple of them. One, it's a reporter that was attacked by Antifa. Now, we're going to play another one in just a minute, but before we do, let me describe what you just saw there. That, ladies and gentlemen, was not Tiananmen Square in China. No, it wasn't some beatdown of people in Cuba or Venezuela. That, ladies and gentlemen, was in Portland, Oregon, one of our great cities in America, one of the most beautiful cities, at least it used to be, in the world. Portland, Oregon. It's just, if you've never been there, it's great. It's been a while, but I have been there. That was over the weekend there. That was a reporter, and his name is Andy, and it's NGO. I hope I say this right, Nago. And let me just tell you, and I'll get into the article a little bit more. He frequently covers these groups, and he was attacked. That, what you saw them spray on him, I'm not sure what it was. I don't know if it was some type of mace or whatever. It looked like it burned him. I'm not sure. But you saw what first people thought were milkshakes. They were handing out, quote, milkshakes to people. And you saw him hit with one of those. Apparently, those so-called milkshakes were actually fast-drying concrete mixes, and he was being hit by them. Before we get any deeper in the story, we're going to show this video, the result of this, because this was allowed to happen in broad daylight in an American street by masked marauders who are really the left wing and the defensive wing of the Democratic Party. Can we play the aftermath of that and show the damages to this young man?
Police at all. In the middle of the street, and they stole my GoPro, and he punched me several times in my face and my head, and I'm bleeding. Where the hell were all of you?
Can you talk to me?
Yeah, where the hell were you?
You know your name?
My name's Andy Ngo.
You know where you're at?
I had been assaulted twice earlier today and reported it to your colleagues.
Hey,
and nothing was done.
Andy, I'd like to
And
help
I was
you
in the middle of the street in the front documenting this.
I'd like to help you. Can you tell me?
They stole my evidence. They stole my
enough.
GoPro.
Andy, can
Is the aftermath of that. That is this young man, Andy Nago. He's actually talking to police officers right there and asking them, where the hell were you? That's a very legitimate question, by the way. Where the hell were you? I'm getting my butt beat. I'm getting assaulted, damn near killed if I hadn't got out of there, by masked marauders in the middle. We're not talking about in some wilderness somewhere. We're talking about in the middle of one of the great cities of America, Portland, Oregon. And he's getting beat up. He's hitting the head about there. They've examined him since then, and he has a brain bleed. He's got bleeding on the brain from getting hit by these cups of concrete. And he asked one of the most legitimate questions any citizen can ask in this: where the hell were you? Is this what we've come to? Let me check my time if we get into the article too deep, but that pretty much covers it. But this is vile, according to Town Hall. Anti-thugs attacked journalist Andy Ngo. Antifa attacked journalist Andy Saturday. Ngo, an editor for Quillette. I don't know about them, but hey, it's freedom of speech, man. Freedom of the press frequently covers the leftist groups' rallies and protesters. So why isn't, I want to ask you this right now. Why and only people like me are outraged by this? Why isn't the New York Times, their feature story this? Why don't all these people who are bashing the president for having the audacity, the stones, to meet with Kim Jong-un, why aren't they talking about this? This is a member of the press. Now, I can guarantee, what do you think would have happened if this would have been like a CNN reporter and he was getting the crap beat out of him by people wearing MAGA hats? First of all, that wouldn't happen unless it's fake. But let's assume for a second that it did. Oh my God, man. I probably couldn't even get on the air. They'd be eating up the entire bandwidth just to bring you this. But you might not even hear about this dude other than shows like JMT, which, by the way, is why you need to watch it. Go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. But Ngo shared a video of the police asking him questions. We just showed that. Let me just ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say this in kind of a conclusion. How can we allow this to happen? How can we allow this to continue? Mass protesters should be arrested on the spot. How can we allow mass protesters, people who are so ashamed of what they're doing, they don't even want their mother to know who they are? These are the same people that in Washington, D.C. attacked Tucker Carlson's house. He wasn't even there. His wife had to make a makeshift panic room, call her brother-in-law to try to save her. They were beating down the door. What would they have done to Tucker Carlson's wife had they beat the door down? And where the hell were the police? I mean, let me just tell you a quick story what's happening here in my local area in Gainesville, Florida, the middle blue lake in the middle of red in Florida where I live here. Gainesville's mayor literally said that because so many people of color were being arrested, he wanted more diversity in arresting. And until he got diversity, that his solution to that was to arrest less people. So I guess the best way to make sure we're all diverse is to just put a dadgum mask over our face. Is this where we've come? This should be what the Democratic Party, who supports these thugs, who are working for these people, who called them out? I'd expect them to be called out, right? Come on. MAGA hat wearing kids from Kentucky called out. Fake BS in Chicago with Jesse Smollett called out, put on up. But this guy, a reporter, freedom of the press, getting literally almost killed, and the police are just standing by doing nothing. It's an absolute disgrace. And I can tell you, they may ban me from this or whatever, but I'm just going to call it like it is. If this is what America has become or is becoming, then what we're in danger of becoming, forget all the nonsense and stuff, we're becoming a country. Keep in mind, and I'll close the show with this, keep in mind that we have an all-volunteer military, right? And it's a great fighting force. I'm not besmirching them in any way. But what if we become a nation that is not worth fighting for? That's what this choice is about. Do we want to be a nation that's worth fighting for, or do we want to be that? Because, ladies and gentlemen, that nation, if we allow this to take over our streets, is not a nation worth putting your life on the line for. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. We're going to be on again, as we always will be, Monday through Thursday, 8 o'clock to 9. We're going to have a special show every Sunday evening. Stay tuned over this great network. But above all else, have a blessed day.